different sales processes and different ways of working and different ways of logging in the system. So we just need that unification and in terms of systems and process so that we all work with opportunities the same way, we all work with customers in the same way. Because only then can you do your predictable revenue, and only then can you draw the conclusions and measure all the conversion rates.
This is Sales Ops Demystified, the #1 most downloaded podcast in sales operations. We invite the brightest minds in sales ops onto the show to deconstruct the what, why, and how behind rep productivity, forecasting, metrics, and all things revenue. This podcast is brought to you by EBSA, a revenue intelligence platform used to identify risk in the pipeline and score customer engagement, and is sponsored by the Global Sales Operations Association and the UK Revenue Operations Network. Hello, and welcome to another very special episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. Today, we're joined by CJ Färnström, who is the head of business operations at Mynewsdesk. CJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
This is an absolute pleasure. We haven't had that much representation from the Northern Europe/Scandinavian countries on the show, so I'm very glad to have you here today, CJ.
Thank you.
First question is, I see from your work history that you, once upon a time, were in sales. You had an account manager role. I'd love to know two questions. First, what impact that experience has had on your sales ops career? And then secondly, why you transitioned from that into sales ops?
So the impact, well, I think what that brought me was kind of a respect of how insanely difficult that job is, like the sales job. And basically every month you're starting from scratch. You might have a pipeline built up, but you have zero on your account, and just it's a journey like every month, and it starts over, and you need to chase that revenue and get the meetings and do the calls, and it's it is a tough job. So that I have with me, absolutely. And in terms of also in my role now, I think having that experience with me also makes it easier for me to kind of work with these with salespeople today, because I understand them, and I speak their language a bit, and just the respect for them, absolutely. I think the reason I moved into sales ops was, when I started out in sales, I was, moderately successful in sales. I think I've always been more of a system and process, stronger in those areas. And then at a point in time when I worked at the company Project Place, we had new leadership coming in, a new strategy for that company, and new leaders coming in with the kind of mission to sell that company. And then we were kind of trying to set the solid processes and systems and everything around that in the companies. A business operations group was set up because of that, and my kind of profile kind of mapped into to that group. So I joined that group, and we started setting up that group and those processes around that company.
Awesome. Moving on to skills. From our research of you, it seems like your area of expertise lies between both leadership and analytical skills. As your career has progressed, what is the usage of each of those? Has that changed over time? For example, did you used to use more analytical skills like earlier on in your career, and then leadership skills later on? Would you agree with that mixture?
Yeah, I suppose so. The first roles I had as I said in this first group I joined, that was a business operations group. So we were people different competencies in that group, and I was kind of a sales operations person there. And we had a marketing person and a finance person in that cross-functional group. And then my job was pretty much to provide knowledge about how salespeople work and think and sales process, and also to do reporting and lots of analytical things like that. Whereas now I'm in a role where I'm taking more of a holistic business operations approach and also doing a lot of change management in sales process. So for that, yes, in that change management and kind of leading those projects, the sales process changes, it's definitely the leadership skills plays in more.
Got it. Let's zoom in onto Mynewsdesk now. I'm quite interested in the structure of the team, especially if you've moved from a sales ops role to a business ops role. Does sales ops fit within the larger business operations function?
No. So it was essentially Mynewsdesk a couple of years ago. I was setting a new strategy to kind of do a kind of turnaround and growth plan. And one of the things that came out of that plan was to start working with the sales operations or business operations function, because that didn't exist here before. So I kind of joined as sales operations and pretty much teach the company what a sales operations business operations person can do. So in that, I work a lot with the sales process and sales technology and commission models and sales enablement and prospecting and so on. Sorry, please repeat the question.
It was just whether the sales ops function sits underneath or within business operations.
Yeah, so now I kind of moved into a business operations role when we had just natural reorganizations in the company. So now I kind of take the holistic view rather than just a sales operations view, and also now I have 2 Salesforce admins in the team.
Beautiful. And so what is the size of the whole business ops team, and what is the size of the sales ops function within that?
So we are 3 people in business operations, and I am kind of the sales operations focus sort of in the team, and then we have 2 dedicated Salesforce admins.
Amazing. Yeah. And then roughly how many sales reps are you guys kind of responsible for?
So we serve, I think, about 45 sales reps, including managers. We have 15 CS people and 10 SDRs.
Wow. And you're responsible for the ops for all of those 70 people.
Yeah. And then we work closely with a marketing operations representative as well, but the marketing operations is not included right now in the team. But we have tight collaboration.
So when the number of reps that you're responsible for increases, how do you still maintain a one-on-one relationship with all these 70 individuals that you're responsible for? Like how do you manage that as that scales faster than your team scales? How do you manage the interaction with the reps, SDRs, CS team?
So today, I'll say we have a lot of interaction with the individual sales reps in terms of just Salesforce cases and tickets coming in and problems that occur. I think as it scales, maybe we'll have more channeled through the sales managers, but essentially the whole task and the whole mission is to get it as automated as possible, right? So so that we can provide frameworks and systems and processes for it to be able to serve more people just on a small team.
Got it. Yeah. So that was almost a bad question to ask, right? Because it's your job to build the processes to allow it to scale, so you don't have to sit down with every new sales rep to explain how Salesforce works.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's where, especially for enablement, for an example, that is the situation we have today. And like every new employee starting to onboard them and get them up to speed on systems and processes and so on. But there's just tons of possibilities and systems and things we can do to automate that. So yeah.
On the topic of automation, could you break down like the core parts of the sales tech stack you have?
Yeah. So we run HubSpot for marketing automation. We have Salesforce CRM. We're now implementing Salesforce CPQ, which is this quoting and subscription module. We run NetSuite for ERP, and then we have a bunch of smaller apps connected to Salesforce, for digital signature, and we have a AI kind of prospecting tool. It's pretty cool, called Qualifier. We do some card payments on Stripe. We run some Sales Navigator and LinkedIn for prospecting.
Amazing. And in the first, nearly a half of the year, but in the first half of 2021, what has been a big focus for the three of you?
We have almost solely focused on the CPQ implementation now, because our Salesforce org is very old. It's from, I think, 2005, 6 something. And as companies grow and you do tons of reorganizations over the years, and Salesforce ends up being just a patchwork, right, of just codes and different things and objects, and so we're doing a bit of a Salesforce revamp, whereas CPQ is one of the components of that, but also like a driver to kind of clean up things. Like 2 years ago, I would say all of our sales orders came in. We just stacked upon each other. So we just had a bunch of opportunities and a bunch of sales orders. Whereas now we're kind of moving into having subscriptions to really align with how a subscription business is working. So that is a big shift in kind of data model which we work on.
Awesome. And then final question from me is, who in the world of sales ops would you most like to take for lunch?
Yeah, so I saw another episode of this podcast here when there was a girl, Stephanie from Google, who's also Swedish, also living in Sweden. And like, one of the problems I have is like lack of network. Like there's very few business operations people in Scandinavia as a whole. And so literally just anyone in business operations I can just share my thoughts with. And we actually connected and said that we really need to set up some kind of network in Scandinavia and in Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember saying to Stephanie that there should be a Scandinavian sales ops, or maybe not, maybe Scandinavian business or revenue ops network. And I think that you two, and there's another guy called Tim from Funnel, who has also been on the show.
Yeah.
You three should be the founding partners, I think.
Yeah. So that will be our first lunch.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to hand over to my wonderful co-host Alex for some more sales ops specific questions.
Thanks, Tom. And thanks, CJ. That was really interesting. And it was quite funny as I was listening, I made a number of notes of things I thought I could ask you about. But I think the thing that got me most interested was what we touched on at the end, where you said, you've got, Mynewsdesk has such an old sort of Salesforce instance, been going 12 years, and how it gets higgledy-piggledy sort of put together. And And I just think that's probably representative of so many businesses out there, and the temptation, do you spend all this money on a complete migration to a new org, or in your case, do you do a revamp? So I'd just love to hear a bit more about the revamp process, about any tips and things that you might have for that.
So I think a lot of the companies I worked for before have had a time in their corporate life, company life, that they got new investors or merged with the company, or something big happened that kind of made a system cleanup for some reason. Like they were forced to switch CRM, but we never had that. So essentially we just built on and on and on. And that was absolutely up for discussion. Like, should we kind of start all over again? And we were looking to merge with another company. And then that would have been a good option, just to start over. We ended up not merging. We're just working as sister companies instead. So then we kind of thought that we could, it's probably a better idea to just revamp it and just keep people working in our orgs, and then we can just work in background and just launch it at some point.
Great, thanks. And I suppose, so what were some of your priorities then when it came to revamping? What were some of the things that needed to change?
Well, Salesforce has surprisingly poor support for subscription business, even though there are like the SaaS themselves. So in this revamp, we're absolutely looking for just supporting the kind of sales model that we have, that's similar to a lot of SaaS companies with an SDR team and an AE team and CSM, and we're going to work on renewals, and we do amendments and so on. And just to have that structured and measurable, so that we can do the forecasting we want, and also to support the like a large sales and marketing funnel across the whole organization, so they can see how many leads do we get in, and from what sources, and how many opportunities do those create, and what money do we get from those, and how long does it take to do each and every one conversion, because then you can do your like forecasting that you need for making 4-year plans or 5-year plans, or even going to other markets, right? That is definitely what you think that it's just super beneficial to have in place.
Thank you. And I suppose so. And is it fair to say that one of the big impacts of a sort of a sort of an old and fragmented and sort of ad hoc built Salesforce org is it makes it harder to get that unification across the whole revenue life cycle? Would that be something that you'd agree with?
No, it's it all depends on how it's built from the beginning. So I think a problem that we have had, and that maybe a lot of other companies, especially European companies, maybe have had, they have sales teams around Europe and in different countries, and kind of lead to different sales processes and different ways of working and different ways of logging in the system. So we just need that unification, and in terms of systems and process, so that we all work with opportunities the same way, we all work with customers in the same way. Because only then can you do your predictable revenue, and only then can you draw the conclusions and measure all the conversion rates and time lapses and so on. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then just last question, I think, but just on your implementation of CPQ, which seems to be increasingly popular at the moment, but also one of the sort of the hardest and longest things that people tend to find to implement. And you said you spent most of the quarter or even the year so far on trying to get that in. Any particular challenges or tips that you've had from trying to get that implemented that could be helpful for other people thinking of the same thing?
It all depends on where you start from. I was in a similar CPQ implementation in my last job, where our ground setup was pretty good. We already had like a subscription framework, and for that, it's just super easy. Here and in other companies I work with, we don't have like the sense of a subscription. It's just orders on top of each other, and that makes it everything more difficult, of course. So it's just time, and the way we've done it here now is that we're gonna, as part of the enablement, just prepare a user acceptance test sandbox and just let people in and test, and just test the hell of it during summer, and then we'll configure and make the adjustments and launch after summer.
Great. Well, hope that all goes well, but it sounds like a really solid approach. Cool. Thanks very much. That's all the questions I have.
All right, CJ, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to call this episode, or the thing that struck me the hardest was actually your first point about the account manager or the sales role is really, really hard. And so I'm going to call this episode the most difficult job in the world. And I think it's so important that sales ops, business ops people understand that their customers or the people they work with, which is the sales reps. And that's the thing that I took away from this episode. So I want to thank you so much for being so generous with your time and wisdom with Sales Ops Demystified. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. If you are listening on a podcast listening application, then please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you have any questions about the show, if you know a guest, or if you have any questions about sales operations, just hit me up at tomhunt@ebster.com. That's tomhunt@ebster.com.